Hello there and welcome to another edition of Ask David. So during the COVID-19 crisis, where we're all being asked to stay at home and stay safe, there couldn't be a better opportunity, could there, for getting your garden looking in the best shape it's ever done, ready for the coming summer. But you've got lots of questions that you've been sending in to ask me, gardening queries that keep popping up. So without any more ado, let's go on and answer some of them. So the first question on the list comes from Yvonne, and she asks what she can do to deal with the little red pests that are on her lilies. Now Yvonne, I think I know what these are. Little red pests for me equals lily beetles, and they've already made themselves felt across some of the country. People are already finding them on their plants really early this year. So the key thing is to find all the red adult beetles, round them up and dispatch them in whichever way you feel is appropriate, and also look carefully down the plants, further down the plants, to see if there are any of their eggs and their larvae. Now the eggs are very tiny little yellow things that you'll find on the leaves, probably very difficult for most of us to see, but as soon as they hatch out into the most voracious feeding larvae that cover themselves in their own excrement. They've got great habits, haven't they? And those need to be picked off the plants too. Do that with a gloved hand just to make sure that you're keeping your hands clean, and then also dispatch those. Now the only chemical treatment that there is really comes from a systemic, it needs to be a systemic insecticide. That's one that is applied to the leaves, and then as the insects chew the leaves, they take in the chemical and that kills them. But really, I do most of mine by picking off the bugs and their larvae by hand. Now Sarah's asking about her forsythia. She says that last year it flowered like mad and she had a really good display. This year, no flowers. She also says that last year she trimmed it back after flowering. And from the word trimmed back, Sarah, I think that sort of suggests that you nibbled back at the outside of the bush rather than going into the centre and taking out some of the oldest flowered shoots. So with forsythia, the best advice, as with any spring flowering shrub really, is as soon as it's finished flowering, go in there and trace the oldest and the tallest flowered shoots right down to the base, and use a pruning saw or loppers to cut those stems right down low. Leave all the thinner shoots in place and they will carry on growing this year, ready to flower next year. And I think, Sarah, that will see your problem solved. Now Carol has emailed into gardenersworld.com to ask David what she says is a very short, snappy question, and that is, can I divide hellebores, and if so, when? Well, the answer, Carol, is short and snappy too. The answer is yes, you can divide hellebores as long as they've grown into nice big clumps. Don't try and divide the little ones because that would be a bit mean. So once the clumps have been growing for about 4 or 5 years and bulked up into a large root ball, then you can lift the plant and then slice it into sections, each one with its own growing shoot. But again, don't be too mean with it. Lift the clump and perhaps just slice it in half, and then instead of one plant you've got 2, and you can do that long division, you can do that every 4 or 5 years and gradually build up your stocks. The next question comes from Heather, and in common with probably about half the nation, she's been sowing seeds, and she says her cosmos have come up really well, they're looking really healthy, but if anything they're just a bit leggy. So the thing here, Heather, is to fill a seed tray or pot with some fresh compost, make sure it's level at the top, and then water your seedlings really well, and then use the end of a pencil or a dibber to tease those seedlings carefully from the original compost. Make a hole in the fresh compost, a really deep hole, and then lower that seedling down, first with its roots, lower the roots of the seedling down into that hole and bury as much of that stem as you possibly can, but not going above the seed leaves. And then carefully push the compost back in around the stem to support it, water it well, and those plants will grow on quickly and turn into sturdy plants without that lanky stem. And the last question this week comes from Chris, and Chris writes in to ask about a Daphne Jacqueline Postill. Now this is a lovely plant, beautiful flowers. It's probably just coming to the end of its flowering period now. They're gloriously scented on a reasonable size, medium sized shrub. Lovely thing, and semi-evergreen. Now Chris says that this particular specimen is looking a bit yellow and wonders whether it's anything to do with the fact that it's growing on Hampshire chalky soil. Well, I think you're dead right, Chris, and what I would do to put this right is mulch around the base of the plant with a good 2 inches of homemade garden compost or bagged compost. Just lay it on the surface, don't go right up to the stem though, keep it away from the stem, and then give the plant a really thorough watering, and then over the next few months I'd probably give it 2 or perhaps 3 feeds with a sequestered iron plant tonic, a seaweed based sequestered iron tonic. Water that on to the roots, and I think that will make the plant grow quite strongly and start to lose its yellowing leaves. Well, that's about it for another week. I'm going to get back to the garden. Make sure you stay safe, and in the meantime, happy gardening.